You going to try an Ārepa?
Oh, well, I better, I guess.
The brain drink.
I did notice that this was the bag that John used to take our dogs to swimming this morning.
Yes, that was from when Nicole and I had a weekend in Auckland.
Ooh.
And
it smells nice even.
It's kind of like a bubbly, there's bubbles, a bubbly Ribena.
Oh, that's really good, but not ultra sweet.
No. So the other one, the full steam, can't remember what it's called, without bubbles, it's a bit more bitter, a bit more intense,
No, it's nice.
black currant. See, that weekend Nicole and I went to Auckland. They put on, there's a guy who used to be a surfer in Australia, Cooper Chapman. He talked about, did some work on gratitude and meditation. And then Nigel Beach, who's based in the Mount as a physiotherapist, he did some breath work, and so he took people through Wim Hof breathing, but talked around the physiology of that. And they had another girl from Lululemon do some yoga.
I was talking about that Wim Hof breathing at work the other day.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, well, for midwinter, Jelly Park decided that they would have a midwinter swim in the outdoor pool. So they were trying to encourage all the different lifeguards to go.
Do they know the temp of it outside in the middle of winter?
I don't know.
Is there any
4
heat?
degrees or something.
Is there any heat running through it or no?
No, they
Yeah,
stopped
get
it.
chilly.
Although they did have it going there for a while because they were filming a movie, and so they had to put the heating back on. So they put all the covers back on, put the heating back on, because they were filming a movie in the dive well. I don't know what. I saw them doing the filming when I was biking past, but then once they turned it off again, I thought, oh, we'll have a midwinter swim there. So, yeah, I didn't go.
I wonder if, what is his name? He has O Studio in Christchurch, and they have ice bath and sauna and maybe some infrared stuff.
It could be something that they could do. You know, you could have the sauna and then go and dive in the pool outside.
Yeah, that's what
But
you're
I
doing.
think it would
That's
be
what
a
you do
bit-
in Europe.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to be
Banya.
a lifeguard doing that, though.
Yeah, saving people.
Yeah, no.
Just as long as they're not doing the breath work by the side of the pool and jumping in the pool and trying to do breath holds, then you might have to implement your skills.
Don't encourage breath holding.
No.
No.
Some people would go and do freediving training there, though, right?
Oh, they can do, but they have to book a lane and they have to have a spotter with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise we don't let them do it because they can faint really easily. And you don't want that.
Don't want that.
And if they're underwater and they're just sort of floating underwater, you don't actually know if they're okay or not.
Yeah.
Because you can't talk to them. And yeah, I've had to go and poke somebody.
No, doing it on purpose? No, okay.
Yeah, they're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't know that.
Yeah. So before university, had you been a lifeguard before, or just the Queenstown pool was?
Oh yeah, Queenstown pool. I guess it was a lifeguard. Yeah.
How did that job come about? Like, your parents had a crib. Was it your grandparents first?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So both my mum and my dad's parents had separate cribs in the Queenstown camping ground.
Yeah.
And so, come university holidays, well, even at the end of high school, I worked at H&J Smiths in Invercargill on the school holidays.
Yeah.
And then sort of going first year to uni, it's like, well, it'd be quite good to get a job somewhere else rather than staying at home.
With mum and dad, I've just had this whole year away.
Yeah. And so, because I swam at Murihoku Swimming Club, and we used to have an exchange with Queenstown every year, we'd go up there or they'd come down. And so one of the guys from there, he was on the committee that ran the pool in Queenstown, and that was up the hill, sort of above the mall. If you carry on going up the hill, there was an outdoor swimming pool up there, and they needed a lifeguard / supervisor for the summer, and so he, because he was on the committee and knew that I was there and knew that I had some accommodation up there, asked if I wanted a job there to do that. So I had a year doing that, and then another guy from the pool, from the committee, he did the chlorination of the pool, so I didn't have to worry about that. I just had to do, look out for the kids and do the cleaning out afterwards. And there was a few characters of kids who used to go there. There was one guy, I've forgotten his Christian name, surname Grant, and he actually climbed K2.
Wow.
His mate, actually, he was killed on K2.
Mm.
But at that stage, he's just one of those teenage boys who was a bit of a thrill seeker. And he and his mate was a boy, Brown, whose family owned the ski hire in Queenstown.
Or Brown Ski Hire, of course.
Yeah. And so those two boys did my head in, really. But they would bike there on their sort of, early BMX kind of bikes, and they would ride up the ramp and across the side of the pool and do a flip into the pool, and that's how they would arrive.
We're here.
Of course, I had to growl at them every day.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could sort of tell that those boys were going to do something, and then the guy Grant, and there's actually a monument for him in the Queenstown Gardens. And there's a great big rock, and there's a story about him and a pickaxe beside it, because he was actually killed mountaineering. Real, but lived life to the full, obviously. Yeah. So that's how I got the job there. Yeah.
And so was the Tiki Corner crossover? How did you meet Gordon and Gloria?
So the McKeach's, Gordon and Gloria, Gordon was on the committee, and
so they were involved with swimming too,
they were in the committee for swimming, yeah. And so that following year, the guy who did the coronation, his daughter was then at university, in her first year at uni, so she got the job at the pool.
Right.
And then I didn't have a holiday job, but Gordon McKeach contacted me and said, look, I'm really sorry you haven't got that job, but we're opening this souvenir shop in Queenstown called Tiki Corner. And no, it wasn't. It was called the Fur and Wood.
Right.
They later owned Tiki Corner. The Fur and Wood, which was partway down Beach Street, and it also had bike hire. So you sold the souvenir, beautiful power and resin ashtrays, and tiki's made out of chips of power, and things like sheepskin rugs and T-shirts with all about Queenstown on them, and it was fun, and also a lot of taxidermy.
Did Gordon and Gloria make that stuff, or
no?
So there was just somebody in that Queensland area doing merchandise.
All over the place, I think. Yeah, they'd buy it in. Yeah, and and so I'd be on selling that stuff, and doing the bike hire, and Gordon would fix the bikes because they were always breaking down. I knew about crank. What I think was it a crank something or other. Now see, I don't know it anymore. Cotter pins. They're the things that used to make the pedals slip. Yeah.
What was a bike like, and what were people doing with them?
Or just they'd go for a bike ride around Queenstown.
But like, they wouldn't be going into Macetown and...
No, they weren't mountain bikes. They were more like the old Rally 20s.
Yeah, just cruising.
No, yeah. Go for a bike ride around the pool, around the lake, very popular. And they had a couple of tandems as well, so people liked those.
Was that the Gardens path here then?
Yeah. Yeah. You could go all the way along, to the youth hostel along the front. Yeah. And then round to the gardens and all round the gardens and stuff. The track didn't go all the way to Frankton at that stage. Yeah. But that happened later on, like when we used to go there. Yeah. So it was a really fun job. Lots of different people coming in. You get the bus tours would come in about 7 at night, and there'd be a whole lot of people from Japan or China or wherever, and they would sort of do their recce tour around and look at all the souvenir places and work out what they were going to buy. And then the next day they would spend the whole day on a bus going down to Milford. So they'd go Tiana, Milford, and so they'd leave at like 7 in the morning, come back at 7 at night, and then they would come and buy their stuff, and then the next morning they would leave and be away off on the bus.
Off to Mount Cook, probably.
Flying visit to New Zealand, yeah. But yeah, it was fun, and I'd stay up in the camping ground in the crib. Yeah.
And would that have been sort of the Queenstown border?
What do you mean, the border?
Was there many houses up Fern Hill, and Queenstown Hill and things like that?
Yeah, there was. I'm not that old.
Up to the Shotover Gorge, Arthur's Point way.
Not so many that way. It was a wee bit more industrial along that way. Yeah. All the way round to Frankton, there were houses. They were more cribby though. They weren't, like great big huge houses.
Yeah.
In fact, a friend of my mum's, she and her husband had a place there called Cozy Dell, and it was a little sort of an old weatherboard house on the lake side of Frankton Road, and they used to go there every year for years. And I mean, the crib that I stayed in was my dad's parents' crib, and it was made out of 2 old army huts that had been joined together. So originally it had just a veranda, and the wash hand basin was just a bucket. Well, there was a sink cut out of a hole cut out of a bench with a sink put into it, and then the drain hole went down into a bucket, and then you emptied the bucket out later. So that was sort of outdoors. Yeah. We just chuck it onto the garden pretty much. And then later they built that little bit in, and then they added on a toilet and a shower and a hand basin. Mum and Dad did that, and a little kitchenette piece.
So that was the one that I would have gone to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We first went there. Yeah, Andrew, when you and Andrew were little, we used to go there when Mark arrived. It sort of got a bit crowded because there was only a little bed.
In the divan.
Yeah. Which folded down. Yeah, John and I had the divan, and you could fit 2 kids one end at each end of the wee
top
bed.
And tailed. I think we did go one time, and Mark, it must be Mark, might have been in a porta cot or something. He was over in the entranceway. Yeah,
he was. Not a porta cot though. It was. Didn't have porta cots.
That prammy thing.
A pram, yeah. The carry cot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember being at the crib watching Otago win an NPC.
Wow, there wasn't a TV there, so...
No, I don't know how we were watching it.
Maybe it was at Grandma Hobbs's crib.
Oh, maybe I've got the story mixed up.
Grandma's parents' crib might have had a TV. No. I'm sure it probably did, because Grandma used to go and stay there after Granddad died. She would still go up and she would stay there. So when I was working at the Fir and Wood, Grandma would be there on holiday at the other crib, and Mum and Dad would be in Glendhu Bay camping. Yeah. So she did have a TV there, so maybe we were over at the other crib. No. It was sort of on the one
but she wasn't
each side.
She wasn't around when I was born.
No, she wasn't.
So I don't know. I don't know how about that story.
No, because Betty and I, my aunt and uncle, owned it then. Yeah.
How long was your papa around for?
Well, both grandfathers died when they were aged 69. So Dad's father, he was a bit older. He went to World War One. Yeah. So we were just talking about this the other day. I was talking with Mum about it, and I think that I would have been about 4 when he died.
Sandy.
Yeah.
Granddad's dad.
Yeah, because my memory of him is like looking up and watching him playing cards at the dining table, and there was a window in behind it. I can see it clearly, and he would be dealing the cards out, playing patience. And I can remember sort of looking up and seeing him silhouetted against the window. And then when we tried to work out how old he was and, when he died, I think it was about when I was 4. Whereas Mum's father, I was probably in my maybe 10, 12 maybe when he died. And he was 69 as well.
Do you remember
both heart
much
attacks.
Around them?
I don't really remember much about Sandy because I was only 4. But Granddad Hobbs, in stories that Mum tells too, he's great with his hands and,
watchmaker, right?
He was a watchmaker, yeah. And he built his own caravans. He's his mum's got some sketches that he drew in pencil of a dog, an amazing Alsatian dog that he'd drawn, very talented. And he, he had a flair for design, that kind of like that, the caravan with the real curve back on it, and it sort of mirrored the look of the old Vanguard car that they had. So it had the curve as well, and the sort of oval window in the back. So the caravan had the same. Mum talks about holding the beading of the caravan as Granddad, fitted it on. Mum and her sister helped him out and things. So he was great with his hands. And
what did they used to do with that?
They would go up to Queenstown and stay in the camping ground. So that was before they had the crib.
Right.
Yeah, and then he built the crib in Invercargill.
And shipped it up in
and
two
they
pieces.
took it up on it. No, it was one
One
piece
piece.
because it was really only, it wasn't a big crib, one room kind of thing, with a little toilet bit off the back. So he built that, and they took it up on a truck and going around the Crown Range by that at that stage.
Devil's Staircase, you mean?
Devil's Staircase, sorry, yeah. Because that road's not what it is now. It was pretty rough, and it had big cliffs, sort of rocks overhanging. So going around, they ripped the spouting off the side because it scraped along. And then they got to the old Kawara Bridge coming into Queenstown, which is now that lovely, beautiful curve thing. They had to then stop and jack the crib up on jacks to get it over the top of the edge of the bridge to get it through. Yeah, but it was pretty cool. It had, in fact, it would be so trendy now because it had like a teal bench, and it was all that real 60s look. A teal bench and sort of different coloured cupboards with big round handles. I loved it actually. A bamboo curtain across at the end of the bed to separate it from the main living area, and a big stone chimney, and it was pretty cool. Lots of things, lots of memories there from that. They had a really, you might remember it was like a weird snake that was joined. It was like a piece of canvas, and then it had pieces of, like, I don't know what it was, pottery, ceramic of some kind, joined together, and each little piece, because there was just the canvas all the way along, it would move and you could hold on to it.
I don't know if I remember the same one, but I think I remember a wooden version of it. They had like wedges in the neck.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, we did have a wooden one. Yeah. And that's one of the things I sort of remember as a child, going there and staying there. Yeah. But I mean, we stayed there when John and I were going skiing from uni. Yeah. In the days where it was $8 a day.
Yeah.
Well, we could afford it.
Yeah.
We used to stay there. Yeah, there'd be John and I and some friends would stay there, and sometimes over at the other crib. It was good fun.
So with him, was the story of like the motorcycles and the rugby park being raced around and things, and him keeping time, was that relayed to you, or was it
Granddad Hobbs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the beach races and stuff, like, was that
beach races and Burt Munro and my uncle? So mum's right into that at the moment, telling us all these stories. Yeah, telling us all these stories. But so Granddad, because he was a watchmaker, used to maintain all the stop. Obviously, the old, use your finger,
have a pin
stopwatch. Yeah, and so he would time keep the beach races. On Ārepa Beach, and Mum's Uncle Bill, he used to race as well, so he's quite involved in that. Yeah, and I think he did them for the swimming as well, because Dad used to swim for Southland and things. So I'm pretty sure Arthur did the stopwatches for the swimming as well. Yeah.
And so, how did the swimming club sort of become what it became? Like,
Murihiku Swimming Club. I don't know what it's always been, as far as I'm aware, Murihiku Swimming Club. And Dad, like I say, he used to swim, and so just through the years, he would swim, and then we went there and learnt to swim. There were classes through swimming club and separate ones. I remember Max Jones was the guy who taught me to swim, and there was another man too, his name escapes me. But Max and his wife Adele were great swimming teachers, and they weren't in the water ever with the kids. You were in there on your own, but you started when you were 5. You didn't ever go to swimming lessons before you were 5.
In that learners pool.
In the learners pool at Collins Street Barnes.
They had the well though, right, to be able to coach in, right?
Yes. So I mean, I taught swimming with Murihiku all the way through. In fact, I taught even when I was pregnant with Andrew. I couldn't reach over anymore. The tummy was in the way. But you were level with the kids in the pool, so you could reach over the side and have your arms in the water and sort of hold their arm. But there was big steps right down the end, and the little kids, it was shallower at that end, and they would sit on the step and push out a little way, and there would be someone in the water with them at the far end. But then after that, once they could actually push off and float, then they would be and be able to stand up. Then you were outside. But Max and Adele Jones, they used to have the whole pool, and he had a big long stick like a broom handle with a T wooden attachment on it, and he would stand on the side of the pool and he would lean down and he would just hook this thing up under the feet to lift the feet up, or or tap you to stop you, or and so he would just use that to guide you along. And if you got in trouble, then you would grab a hold of this T part at the end of the pole. So it was a very well organised machine, and they taught hundreds of kids to swim like that. They were amazing.
And so, racing-wise, where did this sort of exchange stuff come along?
So
were they going? Was there championships and stuff?
There was always swimming carnivals every Saturday night in the summertime, and that was an indoor pool. It was always in the summertime.
Some cargo, remember?
Yeah, come on. So they, like right from the word go, you could go and swim in carnivals, and they would have races in the little pool at times, and then but once you got to the big pool, which was the 33 and a third yards pool, and it went quite deep at the diving end.
I remember my first attempt at 50, I was like, oh.
Yeah, Andrew was the same. He took a couple of goes to get his 50 metres, because you had to swim the length and then come back to the deep, which was a bit scary. Yeah. Because at least when you're going down, you're going to the shallow end, and then had to come back and get a bit, And
also Granddad, for us, Granddad would have you jump it and tread water.
Yes. Yeah, you always had to do that.
In the deep part.
Yeah.
Because, of course, that's where the coach was from the deep part.
Yeah. But, so they had widths for the kids, the younger kids. You would remember doing widths in there. And then you progress to doing lengths. So you'd dive in at the deep end and swim to the shallow end, which is always where the timekeepers were. And so there was carnivals.
Yeah, I did the pull the plug.
Pull the plug?
Pull the plug.
The carnival. Yeah, before they closed it. Yeah.
But we had I remember doing a 25-metre race at Cotton Street, and they used to have a lane rope.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because it wasn't the right length for that. Yeah. So then, and there were exchanges. So Murihoku Swimming Club, like I said, we would have an exchange with Queenstown, and there's Kiwi Swimming Club in Dunedin. So we used to have exchange swim meets with them. We'd go up to.
That was Duncan Lane, was Kiwi?
No, Duncan he was like the first really professional coach that anybody from any club could go to. He was, really the only professional coach down that's part of the country. They probably had them in Christchurch, but it wasn't something we knew about. So no, it was all the coaches were amateur coaches, like Mark Treffis, who represented New Zealand at the Commonwealth Games, Brett Naylor. There's others too, Nadia Rose or Nadia Dunlop.
You were talking about Richard
Tapper. He was later on. That was after. He's a bit younger than me. He went to a professional coach, but those ones then, those coaches were getting up in the morning and coaching these kids. It was all for the love of the sport.
And there was morning and afternoon.
They did morning and afternoon. Mr. Treffis. So Mark Treffis' father was one of the coaches he was the coach for Waverley Swimming Club. My coach was Mr. Proctor. And there were others, Mr. Sutton for Waverley as well. He took the younger kids. And so, and they had some amazing, Mark trained there. He did go to Dunedin later on once he got up the ranks a bit. So did Brett Naylor. He actually lived with Duncan Lang, and Duncan had sort of like a boarding house, and they would go up, and he went to Togo Boys and trained up there. But so we went to age group nationals in New Plymouth, and so you get trips like that through New Zealand swimming stuff. That was as far as I ever got. But then Murihoku, there was a group of parents on the committee who were quite forward thinking. They were trying to keep kids in the sport, and so they somehow, I'm not sure how it happened, they had a contact in Australia, in Canberra, at the Tilapia Swimming Club. And it was pretty much put it out there in the swimming community. We're looking at having a trip to Australia. Is there any clubs over there that want to exchange swim meets? And so Tilapia Swimming Club did. And so every 4 years, Mirahuku went to Australia, and every 4 years, on the alternate 2 years, Tilapia came to New Zealand. And that happened, years, actually. I went on the very first trip over. So I was just 12, because we went in December and I just turned 12. And there was another girl she was a wee bit younger than me. There were 4 of us who were that age group, and four girls, 4 boys, and they had sort of like 4 for each age group. And Brett Naylor was in that team too. Nadia Dunlop was in that team. And so we travelled over. So this is in the very early 70s, and travelled over on the plane. I'd never been on a plane before. We flew.
DC-10.
We went on a bus from Invercargill to Christchurch on a bus, and then we flew to Australia and spent 2 weeks in Australia. So we were billeted with a family for that period, and my billet then, when 2 years later they came over and she stayed with me, and then 2 years later we went back and I stayed with her again. So our families got to know each other as well, which is really nice about it. And then my brother Reese, I remember though, poor old Reese, he was distraught because he didn't make the team when he first was trying to, because it was like 5 boys, 1 had to miss out.
Know what that's
and
like.
Being the coach's son,
and
the coach could not be favouring his own son. Reese was the one who missed out because Dad was the coach. And anyway, he got to go the next time, and the next time. He went for quite, like he was a young adult. He was almost like one of the officials when he went. The last time we went,
Was it competitive? Because we had that New South Wales under-16 team come out and play us, who were under 18, and beat us. And then
what was that for soccer?
Water polo.
Oh, water polo, yeah.
And like a couple of those girls went on and played. Girls and boys went on and played for Australia, but like they were far ahead of New Zealand water polo.
Well, our clubs were pretty competitive. And, we would win some races and they would win some races. But we did stop off in Sydney for, I think it was like maybe 2 nights. We had a carnival in Sydney, and I remember going to the Ride Swimming Club. And that was around the era of Shane Gould, who won medals at Olympic Games. And there were 2 girls, and I can't remember who they were now, but the second time I went, they were real up-and-coming Australian swimmers, and they were all quite young. The swimmers that were winning then were young. They were teenagers, really, late teens, and just the amount of training they were doing. And Bob Council was their coach, and he's written books about the science of swimming and all kinds of things. So that was sort of a big, a real era in swimming for Australia at that time. So there was no way we were going to be competing with them and getting on. But Tilapia, as a club, it wasn't a promise. As a club in Canberra, it was a really good match with the competitive nature of it. And I mean, we had to raise money to get there. So there were bottle drives, you used to get money for. Not so much firewood. We did bottle drives and paper drives because we used to collect newspapers. And then there was a place that made insul fluff. It was like an insulation that got pumped into the walls, and it was made out of paper. And so that was the insulation. It's probably a fire hazard now. So we would.
Did you pick Swedes or something?
Oh yeah, we used to pull Swedes. So there would be a farmer that would donate a paddock of Swedes, and you would go out on a frosty morning, and all wrapped up, and all the kids would go out, and you'd have a trailer and bags, and you'd have to pull the Swedes out, and cut the ends, cut the dirty bits off.
So what, the sheep had grazed the tops? Or
No, they would keep one paddock for human consumption. And and then and you know, you'd peel them and eat them while you were pulling the sweets. Oh yeah, it's good. Just get the mud off. Yeah, it was good. It was all sort of fun too, you know, and it was a good team building and no, it was good fun. Yeah, and it was hard work, you know, but you made the money, and then that's what you used to
get there.
Help everybody helped, all the parents and all the kids were involved in it, and you know, that's made you appreciate what you're doing. Then later on in the piece, Murihiku also had the contract for putting the paper inserts, so they were the junk mail inside the newspaper. You open it up and the stuff falls out and it goes in the bin. We used to put it in, so you go there. You've done that, Ryan? Yeah. And
got black ink all over myself.
Yeah, remember, you know, it's like,
what's that soap that you use afterwards? It's got like sand in it.
It's like a degreaser. Yeah. I'd forgotten about that. It had sand in it. Yeah, it was like sand soap, I suppose, but it was
liquid sand soap.
Like, yeah.
Had a bit of citrus to it. Try to get the bloody ink off.
It worked though, didn't it? Yeah. And that was till, 3 a.m. sometimes, wasn't it?
We used to go to bed first and then get up and go do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you'd done a night's work there, carrying those huge piles of paper.
Yeah.
And you'd arrive and the piles of newspaper would be stacked to the ceiling.
Or sometimes it wouldn't be, and you go, oh shit,
yeah,
it's going to be late.
Breakdown on it, so wait for them to come out. But the piles and piles, and you think, oh, we're never going to get through all those.
Well, when I was doing it, they started having the stuffer.
Yeah, there was a machine.
So that was starting to go, but we'd still have to do a big amount. That was
kind of the beginning of the end, really. But, it got to the stage it was like every night, and Murihiku couldn't do it, because originally it was just in the Saturday paper.
Times, yeah.
And you'd do it on a Friday night.
Yeah, I think while I was there, we were doing Wednesdays and Fridays.
Yeah, and then, so Murihiku couldn't do it when it was every other day. And so then they contracted out to other swimming clubs and other clubs. So there would be the T-ball softball, or would be the ladies marching team, or that were all raising money to go away for their various competitions. So there was, then it became Murihiku managing things, and there was a man, Mr. Thompson. He organised all of the people that came, the subcontractors, if you like.
Yeah.
He did that for years too, all free of charge for the swimming club. Yeah. There was so many hours put in by people for nothing, just because they loved the sport or wanted to be involved and gave back their time, and it was all done with goodwill. Yeah, it was. You kind of don't get that now.
No.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So Grandma...
People don't have the time either.
No.
Yeah.
Grandma grew up on Morden Street and moved, 2.5 blocks away to View Street.
Yeah.
And did she go to St George?
Yes, she went to St George Primary School.
That's where you went as well?
No, I went to Newfield School. Yeah. Which was a 7-minute walk.
Yeah.
Well, usually it was a run for me, because I was always running late.
Where's St George School?
Down the end of Pomona Street, towards Tramway
Road.
Newfield School? Newfield School is a sort of an internal, so it was between...
Near the BMX track?
No. It was between Centre Street and Dome Street and Metzger Street and Lime Street.
Yeah.
So in the middle. And anybody who doesn't know Invercargill won't know what we're talking about. But it was sort of had a reserve in the middle. And then there was the school with the grounds all around it, and there were lanes that cut through, like no exit streets that went through there. I don't know if you remember.
So that path by the Centre Street shops?
Yes, that went down through past the kindy to the
school
reserve, and then the school. Do you remember there was an old army tank? Was it still there? No. There, in that reserve. It's funny. Reese and I used to go down there and play. There's some swings. That was about it. There was an old army tank.
Get away from the St Patrick's kids.
Oh no, they were okay. One of my best friend was from St Patrick's. She's still a friend. She's like my oldest friend.
She's my godmother.
Yeah, exactly. And so there was an old army tank and an old train engine.
Yeah.
And we used to go and play on it and climb in it. And yes, some people did terrible things in those vehicles that you don't want to know about.
No.
Anyway, that's another story.
You can imagine. Yeah. And Grandma's day one Tweedsmuir, is that right?
Yeah, first day people at Tweedsmuir. And I went to Tweedsmuir Intermediate, which is now part of Southland Girls High School.
And then, so when she went on, did she go on to Southland Girls High?
Yes, she went to Southland Girls High School, but at that stage it was in another older building, which is now next door to where SIT is now. Yeah. And that school was, what was it called? It was the Tech.
Yeah.
Technical Institute or something. Yeah. It was another. That's where people went to do shorthand typing and.
The high school was, or
that? No, it was. Yes, it was sort of. It was sort of a high school. It was a high school, but it wasn't an academic
and
high
it was
school.
for girls.
It was co-ed.
Right.
Yeah, and so the girls did typing and the boys did things like woodwork and metal.
But Boys High was there, right? And Greta went
Boys
there.
High was and Granddad went to Boys High.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, when you went through Southland Girls High School.
Yeah.
Where it is now.
Yeah.
Like, what was the messaging at that time? Like, because you ended up at university.
Yeah.
Like, how did you think about that?
Yeah, so people, yeah. Well, when Grandma went, it was very unusual for girls too.
Who was teaching at Southland Girls High?
Women.
Who
All women.
Were trained teachers?
Yes.
Had been teachers' college? Or
yeah.
Did they have degrees or no?
A lot of them did, yeah. And like Mrs. Clarkson, who was Miss Decker, she was when I first went there, and then she got married to Miss Ray Clarkson, who was also a teacher at James Hargest.
Mm-hmm.
She was ducks of this. Like a lot of them were ducks of the schools, the real bright girls. Yeah. And we had some great teachers, actually. I remember one, Mrs. Kirkland. She was amazing for English. And
so they were
really
quite reinforcing of going to university because that had been their experience?
Yeah, they were. And, so that was in the 70s. So, like, when Grandma went, there was not much. There was, like, one or two who would go on to university. Or even who got what was the equivalent, like, of school certificate. Then Grandma didn't. But she had a friend who did, because she was one of the brainy ones. But
that would have sucked, because it's
different.
Like, who the heck decided that you were a brainy one?
Oh, like, I don't know.
At like 13, like you're a brainy
Grandma
one.
did shorthand and typing, and she was good at that too. But and you could still do that when I went there. There was still the commercial classes, but then you were streamed into different levels. So I had initially been streamed into the top class, the A1. There was A1 and A2, and then there was I don't know. There was F1. I don't know. That was French, and then the G's they did German. So the A's did French and French and Latin was A1, French and German was A2, and then there was the just French and just German, and then there was the commercial. So that was the streaming. So if you got into those, the A's, that was kind of the academic side. But I don't know why, but on the day you arrived, you had this test, and I just didn't have the faintest idea. It was like one of those,
Aptitude.
Yeah. And, all these scenarios, and if this person did this and someone did that, and then you're just like, oh, I don't know what the hell this is about. I knew that I'd done really badly. So as a result of that, I actually got put down into the A2s, which in a way was good. Because
you got to do German and French instead of Latin.
Yeah. And also, I kind of got on with those girls more. I knew them more.
How many
I'd gone to
from
intermediate with some. There was quite a few from Tweedsmuir that I knew them from Tweedsmuir. So I was a bit happier, because the ones that ended up in the A1 class, a lot of them have been to St John's Girls' School, and I didn't know them. Although I did know a couple of them, one of whom ended up in the A2 class with me, Prudence Poole, and she and I used to swim together.
Should be a St John's girl, Prue.
Yeah, she was. She and a girl called Fiona Roxburgh, they were good swimmers. But Prue was such fun, and I don't know, she might end up hearing this. I remember her arriving at school from St John's Girls' School, and she had her hair cut really, really short because she was a swimmer. It was that nylon hair, that bleached blonde. And she had the St John's girls at that stage were wearing their kilts just about down to their ankles, whereas we'd been at Tweedsmuir and things, and we got to Southern Girls High School, and you were tested to see how the length of your skirt. You had to kneel down, and your skirt had to touch the ground.
Is it like a pinafore more?
A kilt.
A kilt.
Yeah. And so your kilt had to touch the ground. It wasn't allowed to be above your knee. Well, that's all very well in the 70s when you want to wear a short skirt because minis are in. So you just roll them over at the top to make them shorter. So Prue and Fiona turned up with their kilts down there. It's like,
what are they
where
up
have
to?
These girls been? I didn't even know St John's School existed. That's how I was south of the tracks, you see.
Yeah. It was North Road a long way away.
It seemed it. Yeah.
The other side of Queen's Park, a long way away.
Yeah, never biked that far. But anyway, she not only had her skirt down that long, she also rode a bike with ape hangers on it.
Yeah.
And she had a banana seat.
Yeah.
Which is a big long seat, it was like a boy's bike with these ape hangers and the banana seat. I was like, man, this girl's a bit cool. Heck, but I had seen her at swimming because she used to swim for Waverley, but I never met her outside of being at a swimming carnival.
Did they swim at Conan Street or was Queen's Park built? Yeah.
No, Queen's Park wasn't built then. Coldstream. Terrible name for a swimming pool. Yeah, for a heated swimming pool. Prue was in my class along with a whole lot of other girls, which were good fun. And I'm still like my friend Annette. She and I were in the same class at school then.
Yeah.
She became one of my bridesmaids, and
she went to uni too.
Yep.
Became a teacher.
Yep, she did. And I guess we were given quite options about what else was available, and biology and chemistry and physics, and did all of those. And I really liked the sciences, and at that stage there was a lot sort of coming through around the CSI programs on TV now. Well, it was that forensic science which really interested me. And I don't know, I liked sort of detective stories and that kind of thing. I used to read a lot, and so that appealed. So it's like, oh well, maybe I'll go to university. But then I knew someone else who worked in the it was the medical laboratory at the hospital, and Mum knew the lady down there as well, who was the manager at the time, was a sister of a woman that Mum worked with in H&J Smiths. And so she said, oh, talk to Peg Gray and see if you can go and have a look around. So I went and had a look around and thought it was really cool. And Peg said, about getting a job there. She said, but do you think you'd like to go to university? And I said, I'm not really sure. And she said, look, if you think that you might like to go to university, she said, go to university first, and then if you decide you want to come back and do this job, then that's a really good way of getting into it. So she too encouraged you to go to university, or encouraged me anyway. And so that's what I did, and I did microbiology and biochemistry and physiology. I did physiology because I didn't pass chemistry the first year, and that was the only thing I could do. And psychology. And so, then it's like, oh, wow, you get up there and, you've done okay at school. Not, super bright, but hard work, C's. And then you get up there and there's all these brainy people. Oh, my goodness. So, it took it was a bit of a struggle. Pardon?
Did you meet Spence at Salmon?
Yeah, I did.
So you had people from Auckland?
Yeah, people from Auckland, and there was quite a few who were there to do medicine and, other sort of study.
Dentists
And pharmacy and surveying, quite a few surveyors at Samantul.
Yeah.
And it was great there. I really enjoyed it. Stayed 2 years there. And Prue went there as well, and another friend, Sue.
Was Annette there or no?
Yes, Annette was there too. Yeah, it was, and it was nice because it was outside that sort of intense.
North Dunedin.
Yeah, you walked through the gardens on the way to uni, and you kind of, and you sort of enjoyed nature and things. I suppose it's wellness now, and a bit of exercise to get there. You weren't right in that, and when exam time came, it was sort of like
what road would you go down to get to lectures? Did you go Cumberland? Did you go Castle?
Castle. Yeah, and although sometimes I would go on the other side of the Leith because there was a path that went down behind, so you would go up Knox Street a little bit across the bridge.
Yeah, and go through the garden.
Go through the back. Yeah, and you would
Dundas.
end up at
Dundas Queen. No. Leith Street. Yeah. And then you go past Arana and Studham.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. And then down through the arts.
Yeah.
That way. Yeah. And it was kind of shorter if you had a lecture at the art centre.
Daniel Headley, Tom and I had a possum game up that way.
Oh, did you?
And then,
do I need to know?
Then Campus Watch told us off, so we had to go back to our flat.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to drink in the trees, boys. Everyone's doing it.
You don't need to know, Ryan.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
Nobody fell out.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was good. I enjoyed it, actually. Except I didn't enjoy the Knox people. They were old school, male chauvinists. Yeah.
Still is, I think.
Had very intense initiation ceremonies, and I remember they used to register the smallest person that came in the year as a dog. And they would take that person when they went in. It was awful. When they would go into town, for drinking and stuff, they would take that person on, and they would have a lead, and they would tie them up to a power pole in the octagon, and they had to sit there until everybody had finished drinking, and then they would go home again.
And who's the one that's riding campus that does the exchange with Knox?
Where?
Right in Castle Street and Leith Street, the Cumberland end of Leith Street. What's that hall?
Oh, was that Selwyn?
Selwyn, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just as bad.
Oh, that was just as bad, because if you walked down that street on your way to uni, because it was all boys, they're all mixed now.
Yeah.
It was just boys, and it was just boys up at Knox as well.
Oh, so that's why they got the exchange in.
Yeah, and so you walk down there. I would cross the road so I wouldn't be on the Selwyn side of the road, because if you walked along, they would chuck all kinds of nasty stuff out the window at you, because it was right on the footpath. Yeah,
those old brick buildings.
I didn't like going down there much.
So that's what you'd take.
And then it turned out that Mum's cousin is married to a guy who was an Anglican minister, and he actually became the dean
With
of
Selwyn.
Selwyn. Yeah.
Did he do St Margaret's as well? Or no?
No, just Selwyn.
Just Selwyn.
Yeah. He was the dean there for quite a while.
Clean up the act.
Yeah, I don't know how we managed that. They lived sort of not far up, kind of on site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so, uni was, everybody enjoys uni.
Did you work there?
No, I did work while I was at uni.
Yeah.
No.
How'd you pay for it all?
Well, I did the holiday jobs, like the one in Queenstown, and I had worked in H&J Smith's in my school holidays, so I saved money for that.
And so what did you pay the course up front?
It was different then, right?
Yeah.
When you were at high school, if you got a bursary, then it paid for that money, paid for your accommodation.
Wow.
So I think I would get my bursary check, and then I think I have like $40 left over. So that would pay after I'd paid for
the accommodation.
But Dad gave me $800. I remember when I went to uni, he gave me $800, which was a lot, So Mum and Dad really supported me to go to uni too. Although I do remember Mum was, when they dropped me off at uni at Sarmantool, I remember Mum bawled on her way up. It's like, and then I got in the room. It's like, oh my God, now what? I'm on my own.
Then your third year flat, they wouldn't stop to.
No. It's like Dad wouldn't stop the car. And I was going flatting. Like,
this one.
Dad, stop. What? You're
What
not
street's,
living in that.
What street's that one?
George Street. It was right
but
opposite
north
those,
of town, no.
Yeah, it was right opposite those old Coronation Street type houses, you know. and the piles, you know, they were in my room. They would remember my flatmate Pete. He would pace back and forwards, and I'd have a vase of flowers or something on there. I had to grab it because
were the walls like my walls on Castle Street South? Different direction each wall.
Slightly. It was a beautiful bay window there, and that's where I had my desk, and I
Yeah.
would sit and I could look out and watch the traffic and the people over the road. That was quite interesting. There's a bikie guy who lived over the road, and he'd buy him to bike, and every now and then there would be a whole lot of bikie guys that turn up, and probably very distracting. I had a fireplace in my room, so I could light the fire. It was lovely. It had purple tiles all around it. But the back wall, in the bit where we used to have our table, it breathed. In the breeze, the wallpaper would go in and out because the back wall was just chicken wire and building paper. It never, part of it was plastered, but the rest of it wasn't. So when you went out the back door to hang your clothes on the clothesline, it didn't have any plaster on the wall.
How sick were you?
Oh, actually, I didn't really get sick. No, I didn't.
No mould in the 70s, 80s.
It was well ventilated.
Didn't have a justice there. It was too cold and well ventilated.
No, it was, yeah. No, it was, we had lots of fun there. I mean, flatting with Pete.
Chili con carne experiments. What did he do? Go to the chemistry department and make chili powder?
Yeah, because he couldn't buy any powder. He went down to the little dairy down the corner, which was owned by an amazing Chinese man who used to, when you bought something, he would add everything up on an abacus. Fair go.
And did he have a New Zealand accent?
He could do that quicker than I could do it in my head.
Did he have a New Zealand accent?
No.
Plenty of Chinese and
couldn't
Dunedin
really
with
understand
New Zealand
him.
accents though.
No, couldn't really understand him at all, but he knew, like, you know, you get whatever. We didn't buy a lot from there because it was a bit expensive, but, you know, milk and bread and stuff if you run out. But he would just go with the different colours of beads on the abacus, and he would tell you before you could work it out in your head, before you could add it up. He was amazing. So yeah, this night Pete had bought some mince and thought he'd make chili con carne with his mother's recipe, and so it said, I can't remember how much chili powder it was, and he went down to get some chili powder and he couldn't, so he got dried chilies. He thought, oh, I'll just turn it into chili powder, so
And
went down to the chemistry department, which he was majoring in chemistry, and he got a mortar and pestle and ground it up and came and he thought, oh, didn't really look very much. So I'm sure he put a bit more in and made this chili con carne, and oh my God, it was so hot. Spence, because we had 4 in our flat, but Sue was never there. So it was just the 2 boys and me. And Spence and I were sitting at the table with just tears running down our face from this, and Spence was sitting there with this glass of water. It should have been milk, but we know that now. And a glass of water in his mouth trying to get rid of the burn. And I met John by that stage, and he'd been at rugby practice, and he arrived and he thought something terrible had happened because we were bawling. He thought there'd been some kind of terrible disaster until he came in and found out that we were eating this. So the next night Pete made another lot of mince, same volume. I don't know, so it was a kilo. The first night he added another kilo of mince, and it was still hot, but it was edible. He made blimmin' good pineapple upside down cake in the roasting dish though.
Yeah.
Needless to say, I didn't lose any weight while I was in that.
Did you still swim?
Chocolate fudge pudding.
Did you still swim there or no?
Oh,
But far from Wainapool, was it Wainapool there?
Yeah, no, I didn't really train or anything. I did teach swimming for Kiwi Swimming Club when I was at Samotul, because there was a little swimming pool just down the end of the road where they used to have.
Yeah.
And so, those exchange visits with Kiwi Swimming Club. One of my billets, the dad was used to coach at that, so I sort of thought, I had a bit of spare time at the beginning when I first started. And so once a week I would go down there and help teach for Kiwi Swimming Club for a while. I think I only did that in my first year. But I didn't do any training, or I hardly ever went to Moana Pool. But when I was home, I'd go for a swim, and I would always swim in the Southern Champs to get some points for Murihiku. I was the Open Women's Champion one year.
Nice.
Used to get a hard time about that too.
Why?
Open woman.
Oh, right, woman. Open woman.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was, fletting was good. Made some two, great friends from that, and lots of different ones that I know from Samotul that I see about. And one, I don't know whether Jane went there or not. I don't know if she did. No, there was one that I still see occasionally in Christchurch. She teaches at St Margaret's. Yeah.
So when did Granddad become an insurance broker?
Oh gosh, I think I was about 15.
Okay, so before you had left.
Yeah. A year change from being a dental technician to selling life insurance, which was a brave move.
Yeah, did you talk about anything like that, or like?
No, not really. It just sort of happened.
What happened each year? Like, what are you going to do next year, Julie? Like, what was that like?
No, we didn't really have this. It just sort of happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one day he's like, I'm going to stop being a dental technician. Yeah,
and I think probably, he and Mum sort of keep things pretty close to their chest, I suppose.
Yeah.
And, it was just like one day it was like,
did he hear about
Dad's going to change his job. No.
Was JC's after he was?
No, he was always in JC's. Like as a kid growing up, Mum and Dad would always go off to a JC conference, and Reese and I would stay with grandparents.
Did you reckon he probably heard about it there?
No, I think it was he was also in Toastmasters.
Yeah.
And it might have been through that. There was someone he knew through one of those things.
Did he run a business as a dental technician, or was he working for someone?
No, it was his business. It was Sandy's business.
Yeah.
It was his father. And
he tried to be a shepherd for a while.
He wanted to be a farmer, but and he worked on a dairy farm.
Yeah.
But it didn't. He was slightly misled as to what the arrangement was for him when he was working on the dairy farm. I think originally it was going to be that he could be part of that and buy into that, but it turned out that it wasn't. It was he was the worker, and he didn't ever get that opportunity.
Right? And then they came back from the war, right?
Yeah, when Sandy when he came back from the war and was the dental technician, and it got really busy and he needed someone to help in the business, and Dad was a bit disillusioned with what was happening on the farm, so he then went and worked with Sandy, and I guess kind of an apprenticeship thing with his father. Learnt to that. And Grandma, Sandy's wife, Ivy, she used to do the books for the business. So then when Sandy died, Dad took over the business, and Grandma still did the books for quite some time, quite a number of years. And they had, it was in the old H&H building in Invercargill, which is where all of the H&H buses were on the ground floor. It was a great big sort of, like I guess it's like a wall yard, walled
Scouse.
Something like no, it was just like a great big, with concrete pillars, concrete floor everywhere, and just it's pretty rough. And I remember going up.
Did they have mechanics in there?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't really remember. I remember the smell. I think if Diesel. I smelt that again, and the whole building smelt like that. It was because the buses were always in and out. It was probably really bad for people working in
they were smoking like trains anyway. Probably didn't matter.
They were. And And so very steep staircase going up, and there was offices, and so there was the dentist, Bill Bell, the dentist was...
Because they weren't allowed to work together, right?
No, they were... I don't know if that was a rule or not, but Dad used to do a lot of work for Bill Bell. He did my teeth when I was needing braces and stuff. And then there was a lawyer down the end, so there was various offices.
What was on the ground floor?
That's where the buses were. It was like the big bus depot.
So there'd be like in and out in a waiting area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or not, yeah, a little bit. So they were the buses that would go like Lumsden, Queenstown, but they also had school buses as well. Yeah, they were a big company. But I think it might have been someone in one of those offices that Dad knew that said something about the insurance, and the insurance company was in the building just over the road. Mm-hmm. And Dad met somebody through JC's or one of those things that he Toastmasters or something that he was in, and they suggested to him, would you, I think you'd be good at selling insurance. And of course Dad was in a business where he was in the laboratory making dentures all day, would never see anybody really, except for the odd traveller who used to come, had a room out the back.
So who did the impression? Dentist? The
dentist. And then they would send it to him and he would do the wax model and everything from that. So there was a what they called the sample room out the back. So there was Gordon and Gotch was a company that sold books to the likes of Whitcoulls and that sort of thing. So they used to have a display room out the back that was part of what was owned by, Dad used. And so they would come in and out, and they'd have all the books all set up out the back, and that people would come and decide what they were going to put in their shop. And I remember going there; it was amazing because all these books,
titles,
yeah. And we used to have fish and chips on Friday night, and Mum, we'd go to swimming club, and then Mum would take Reese and I there, and we'd have fish and chips, and Dad would finish work, and then we'd go home together. So he would work long hours, often went back during the weekend because he had to keep up with it. So he was working on his own, and then had the opportunity to do the insurance and loved it. Did all right too. Yeah.
Do you know if
it was a brave thing to do though.
Yeah. Do you know if Sandy and his brothers going to Invercargill was opportunistic or? No,
that's my grandfather had, because both of his parents died when he was young, and his eldest brother worked in insurance, funnily enough. And he moved to Invercargill with his job.
Yeah.
And so the younger ones, like Sandy, went with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how he came to be in Invercargill. Yeah, it wasn't.
Do you know what he did straight away? Got an apprenticeship? Or?
Who, Sandy?
Yeah.
I don't know how he came to be a dental technician.
Yeah.
No idea. No. His another brother, there was another brother, George, he ended up, he's a dairy farmer around Timaru. The Mulligans are still Mulligans around Timaru area. And another brother, Fred, he ended up doing, and I think that might have been something to do with the war, I'm not sure. He ended up doing a signal, Morse code and technician type, that sort of stuff. I think originally he worked for the post office. Then it was like the telephone exchanges and stuff like that. So during the Second World War, he was away. He was a lighthouse keeper for a while. Yeah, so he did that sort of thing. I don't know about all the others. Dad's sister Margaret, she ended up, she was a real woman's libber.
Who's that?
So granddad's, Sandy's sister Margaret, she didn't marry, but she ended up working in the radiation laboratory in Canada, which is where they were developing the hydrogen bomb. And I remember going to see the movie with Judi Dench in it called Red Joan. And she was actually in the movie. She was tracked down because she was seen as a traitor because she sold secrets to the Russians. That's the story went. But she was actually a very bright woman. She was in her 70s when they, decided that they might arrest her after all these years, sort of thing. But she...
Who's that? It's Margaret?
This is the character in the story. And so she had worked in a laboratory, and she'd gone to university, and she'd been very good at physics and maths and stuff. And she worked in this with these physicists and things who were doing about the bomb. And she was providing answers. But because she was a woman, what would they know? And so she was kind of in the background, not with her team she wasn't, but when anything was being, put forward, it was always the men that would do that. And then they were going to Canada to meet with the people who were doing work over there, and they went to the laboratory over there. And so she was taken over as the secretary to the men who were going to do the discussion about this and who had the knowledge. But it was actually her that was doing the work, and it was her that decided that actually this is quite dangerous, and I think that everybody should have this technology, because if only one country has it, then we're going to have problems. So that's kind of the basis of that story. But when they went to this radiation lab in Canada and we were watching the movie, I said, John, that'll be where Auntie Margaret worked, because I've got a silver bangle bracelet, like a wide silver band, and on it I got given it because I worked in a laboratory, medical laboratory, nothing like it, and I was a girl,
Did she know about you or what?
No, well, she knew about me, but she died years before I even went to uni. Yeah, and it's got to.
So how did it get to you?
Through Grandma. Grandma must have got it somehow from the family somehow, and then because I did that, I got given it. Yeah, and it's got to Margaret Mulligan, with appreciation from the radiation lab. For your service, and it was from when she worked over there, so it was kind of cool. So I've got it.
And then when you're working in the lab, how did you manage us? Like, why were we allowed in the lab? It would only ever be briefly, but
kids would come and go. Well, kind of actually.
You said something to me that you were the first person to go back to work.
Yeah, I was the first person to take maternity leave and go back. Yeah. So there weren't any rules about whether kids could call in or not. Yeah. And I worked part-time. So, I don't know, occasionally I would need to go to work or do something, and I'd have one of you kids or two of you kids or three of you kids with me. And it might just be a social thing, call in and meet my colleagues and these are the kids kind of thing. And so, and everybody was, the thing about, especially micro, I'm a bit biased because I like micro, the staff in microbiology love their job. And, I did too. I loved the microbiology and, the bugs. There's something about Pseudomonas aeruginosa and Staphylococcus agalactiae and how it just runs off the tongue.
Well, the amount of times that you took ice cream containers of our poo or spew to work, Mum.
It wasn't that bad, Robin.
Well, that's because we didn't get sick that much, but you would always do
No. Well, you do
sputum samples.
The odd occasion when it was a bit purulent, yes. So the bugs and stuff, and everybody was like that in micro. You just loved the bugs and just everything about it. And even after I left the lab, I would still go and call in and say good day to everybody, and because it was still in the DHB and just nearby. And the smell of Pseudomonas on a plate, it smells like crayons. Like, I know what that is. You see it on the plate, think, that's crayon, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and it even looks like a dark green crayon. And on the plate, it's got that sort of glistening hue, and Streptococcus agalactiae gets in your throat and stuff. It smelled like caramel. Wow. So and you used your nose as well as your sight to and things like Proteus mirabilis, it didn't smell very nice at all.
So when you guys got that stack out of the incubator,
and
then you'd open and look at your note and and also what you'd grown it on, your medium.
Yeah. And we used to make that ourselves too.
Right.
Pour the blood plates.
Yeah.
Bottle of blood and add it into the agar and swish it around and then pour them into plates and had it all stacked up. And then you do blood choc. So that's like blood on one side and chocolate on the other, which is heated blood. So you'd have that in a steamer thing. Split plate. And you'd have that in a steamer. So you know how when mince cooks, it goes that brown colour.
Yeah.
And you knew the blood was cooked, and you pour that in the other side. And there were all sorts of other plates.
And so why would you have a cooked medium? Is it lacking protein or something?
Because it breaks open the red blood cells, so the nutrients that inside the blood cells are available to more fastidious organisms. That like the Haemophilus grew really nicely on chocolate, whereas it didn't grow on, and that was also a clue because it didn't grow on the blood so well.
So it would need to actually get into that agar, break down the red blood cell, and then be able to grow.
Yeah, it's like the agar had that free there for it to, and some things would grow on the chocolate side but not on the blood side. So you would look at it and go, well, there's some there and not there. You think, oh, rightio, that's this, that, or the other. Things like Neisseria, gonorrhea, and all the nice neat stuff. Things. And that's it. You said about kids in the lab. All of us were fascinated and enjoyed that and looking at things in the microscope. So when kids come in, it's like, oh, do you want to see this? And you would have, and of course, you'd put a smear.
You taught me how to flame a loop, and don't do that too heavily. And
because you dig it in, and I actually think I got my loop training by working with Reese and I going to the laboratory with Dad.
Yeah.
And he had, I feel like there's just some kind of karma there. We would go to the lab and Dad would have wax and moulds of wax with teeth, and Reese and I would pretend that we were making a denture, and we would heat it up and stick the teeth in and the wax, and make balls out of the wax and heat up the wee loop thing, and wee loopy thing, and or not so much loop, you would have like these little spatula-y things, and you'd heat them up, and then you'd
he'd have a Bunsen burner in as well.
A Bunsen burner. Heat them up with the Bunsen and get them really hot, and then you put it over the wax and it cut into it really easy, or would smear it and make it smooth and stuff. So I was used to, having a Bunsen on the bench.
Yeah.
And then I go to micro and there's a Bunsen on the bench.
Yeah.
And you do all that. But, you do smears and stain them with different purple and pink stains and carbofuchsin and God, I'm starting to forget them all. But grams iodine, and it changes the cell. There's different parts of the cell in a bacteria, and so different types of gram positive or gram negative bacteria. They're either purple or they're pink. So you knew that these were one family and that was another family. You knew what they looked like because they were like a rod, or they were sort of a coccus was a circle sphere, or there's wiggly ones, and like Campylobacter looks like a little seagull when you look down in the gram stain. So we would show you, look down the grams and look at this, and can you see that? And
do you remember that picture I drew?
Oh, what was that, Ryan?
I wrote on it that one of them was HIV.
Oh, really? But I remember that. No.
I left it in the office, and I think who was the Dutch guy?
Oh, Jared.
I think Jared found it, or you guys had been had a talk about it.
Yeah. So Jared's still in the lab, not that lab, but a different lab.
But and you know how you were saying that it's like, you were practicing the loop with the wax. Well, now I use a microscope every day.
You do. Yeah, that's right. And you've looked down the microscope many a time.
Yeah.
In fact, I do remember, poor Mark, when Mark got nits.
Yeah.
Head lice.
We put it on. Well, he unfortunately had head lice quite a few times.
He did get it quite a few times. And so it's like, oh, God, have they got, And so we actually did have sort of like sample especially when you're training new trainees, we did have sample slides that you would, put under the microscope and show, well, this is a gram-positive coccus and it's staphylococcus and it's clumped, and or this is a streptococcus and it's got it looks like a string of beads and that kind of thing, or diploc 2 together, that could be gonorrhea if it's gram-negative, and you had all these things to teach people with. And so, but we didn't have a sample of a head louse. Louse.
Nice.
Yeah. Head louse. Yeah. And so Mark just donated one. And so we took it in and, got it. And so there probably isn't anymore. There was a slide that was called Mark's head louse.
Yeah. Wonder if you've got a Demodex now. Have you ever seen one of those?
No.
Oh.
What is it?
Actually, it's probably... I don't know where it is. I've got a rubber version of it, but it's an even smaller mite.
Oh, okay. Is it in your eyelashes?
Or every hair follicle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of course it's not only head lice, there's pubic lice as well, which we did have to, identify on occasions. Funny, talking about the lab and stuff, was stuff that came back to me last night when... the night before, and Billy and Annie bring in some books for me to read before they go to bed, and the book was how a baby's made, and there's a picture of a sperm, so I was telling them how I used to have to look at the samples and see all the little tadpole things buzzing around, and so that was also part of microbiology job, was looking at the sperm samples for whether, post vasectomy often, making sure there weren't any sperm there.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I've got to wait another couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't go run the gauntlet just yet.
Yeah. So, we were talking about that, looking down the microscope to see what... with Billy.
Yeah. Well, when Nicole said she was going to buy that book, I was like, I remember reading Where Did I Come From? Yeah, very young.
Yeah.
It was sat next to the Bible. It was quite funny.
Found that Bible the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all the stuff when we shifted. It's still got, how we used to put the foil from the Easter eggs inside? It still had some in it.
And leaves.
Yeah.
Because it's nice and heavy. It pressed things really well.
Children's Bible, pictorial. Yeah. I did think, I wonder which boy would like to have this now.
Yeah, don't know.
Yeah. None, probably.
No, it's a good book.
Yeah.
Dug book. Did Granddad ever count himself lucky that he got kicked out of the Presbyterian choir? Do you think he would have, because he was already riding a motorbike, do you think he would have had it as easy if he was from the other denomination?
I don't think that would have made any difference.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. He was just into that sort of thing. And I mean,
Presbyterians and Anglicans are both Protestants, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it would have made any difference.
It's a very monarchist family, Mulligans.
Yeah. Dad in particular. But I don't know. I probably, it's a generational thing too, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's monarchists now that just love the royal family and line up, and thousands of them, for coronation. Oh, I watched the coronation.
Yeah.
Dad would have loved it. Mum did too.
Yeah.
And I think too that part of that is that link. Because Mum and Dad got married in 1955, and that was just around when the Queen had been crowned, and they were similar ages. Grew up together, and Mum's mum, Gertrude, she was the same age as the Queen Mother, and she looked like the Queen Mother. So you sort of there was that
Jones,
affinity.
Right? Gertrude Jones.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
I would not say too much here because people might be learning all about what my passwords might be.
Yeah. Was it how fun was it going to that Jones reunion last year?
Oh, it was great actually. Although it wasn't the same line, it wasn't the same line as our family. There's still that affinity.
Was it 1700s that they came?
1773, but that wasn't the Joneses. I'm not sure because it was the sort of Calling Jones. They were. I don't know exactly what date they came out, but the Mulligans were 1773.
Mulligans, no.
Not 17. What am I talking about? 1873.
Yeah.
It's the Mulligans that came out. That's the other side of the family.
Yeah.
So Grandma Hobbs's, the Joneses and the Coolings, they came out from, the Coolings came out from Churchill in England, but I don't know what date that was. But they settled at...
Collett Bay? No?
No, they settled at Clifton, south of Invercargill, and they had the Clifton Hotel in the days of Prohibition in Invercargill, so they did quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
what do you mean?
they were slightly outside the Invercargill boundaries. So
oh, right. So they were allowed a license, or not licensed, just allowed to serve alcohol.
Yeah, because Invercargill's been Prohibition, like in those days, and then there was the trust to run that, and that's why you can't buy alcohol in supermarkets in Invercargill because the ILT's still there.
But it works quite well.
It does.
Yeah.
I mean, all of the facilities that we have in Invercargill, because of the ILT and the Community Trust of Southland, and
has there been
incredible.
Negativity around it in your lifetime?
Oh, there always has been. It's a monopoly, and you should be allowed to buy alcohol in the supermarket and all that kind of thing, and people get a bit negative because they've got to pay a bit more. They think they're paying more for alcohol through the ILT, but actually it's hardly any different at all. Maybe $1, maybe.
Yeah.
It's you go to the supermarkets in Christchurch and it's no different really, the prices.
Yeah.
But look at the facilities we've got, and it's the money that you get for doing up the whole of the back of the Civic Theatre, rebuilding the whole of the back of the Civic Theatre so the New Zealand Ballet can come and play. You can have concerts and stuff there. That comes from gaming money, from pokies and stuff. So it's not about the alcohol, it's the pokey machines that fund all that sort of thing. Or the Community Trust of Southland, that came about when the Southland Savings Bank became, then there was like Trust Bank, and what is it now? Westpac.
Yeah.
So there was money there that when they changed, that then was held in trust, and that money has been used to keep generating money and then giving it back to the community.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, last weekend when I was in Invercargill, I met up with one of my lifeguard colleagues, and her daughter was down in Invercargill for a ballet competition. She's trying to get nominated to get to the Ballet Nationals in Palmerston North, which she did, which was amazing. Nice. But Marmy and Sophia were staying at the Tuatara Backpackers because they were trying to save some money because they'd flown down, and they still needed to have this trip up north as well, and so they'd got an Uber from the airport, and then they were stuck in town, and turned out I was talking to her, and she said, I've got to go to Invercargill, and I went, yeah, it's my hometown, and she said, I'd love to see a friendly face, why don't you come? And I said, that's good, I'll bring my mum and she can have a look at the dances. And
where was it at the Civic, or no?
No, it was at the centre stage,
which is the
old
Polytech
State Insurance Theatre, Polytech one. It was freezing because they had no heating on, and anyway, so I took Mum along, and we saw some of the kids dancing, and
was
Sophia
that like
dancing.
Grading?
Kind of, yeah. And I think there were 5 or 6 girls who were trying to get into this, to get nominated to go to get certain level. They did jazz and contemporary at that, and only 2 got nominated, and Sophia was one of them, so that was really nice. But in the afternoon she danced at 11, and then she didn't dance again until 6:30 at night. So I said, what are you doing, for lunch and things? And she said, then we'd just go back to the Tuatara and get something maybe. And I said, why don't we go for a wee ride? And so Mum was with me, and I said, let's go out to the Richardson Truck Museum. They've got that really cool cafe there, the one with the Marmy and Sophia thought that was cool, the room off the side that's done up like a 1960s kitchen with the Formica table and the chrome legs and the cupboards and the
I've only been there once or twice.
It's really cool. And then there's another room that's done up like a 1960s living room, and it's got the ducks up the wall and the couch with the fabric that's, like the old, it's sort of a crimpolini, nylon-y fabric, a bit like the old divan at the crib.
Right.
That fabric and couch and the coffee table, and it's all that stuff. So it's kind of quirky. So they thought that was really cool, and the food was really good and everything. And the fact that truck museum takes up a whole block is incredible. And
did they go in?
We didn't go in, and we didn't have time. So we went there, and then I said to Mummy, we could do a busman's holiday. And, we'll go, do you want to go to the swimming pool? Because she's a lifeguard, She said, all right then. So we drove around to Splash Palace, and, she said,
I was one of the first people to swim in there.
Yeah. She said, wow, they've got 2 hydro slides, this is in Invercargill. Because Sophia said, she goes to Cashmere High School in Christchurch. She said, my friends were giving me a hard time about going to Invercargill, it's the end of the earth and there'll be nothing to do down there. World. And
Thanks. What's his name? Cliff Richard?
No, not Cliff Richard. Mick Jagger.
Mick Jagger.
Yeah, he said that. It was Mick Jagger.
Mick, was it? No.
And anyway, so she said, wow, this is such a cool swimming pool. And then they went in, and Mummy first of all says, they've got the same uniforms as us, Julie. And I went, I know. Is it City Council run? Mummy is the lifeguard with
the lifeguard uniform, sorry, yeah.
And the lifeguard uniforms. And
so they're gone away from the turquoise.
Yellow shirt, red shorts, lifeguard written in red on the back.
Yeah.
And 50-metre swimming pool.
There's still 8 lanes, though, isn't it? They haven't been able to widen it.
Yeah, it's 8 lanes.
Yeah.
And then with the bulkhead in the middle, so it's 2 25s, and then looking at the depth of the pool, how it goes down deeper, and then you've got the bar across for the underwater hockey
at the 2 metre
and
depth.
then it goes down to 3.8 metres under the 3 metre tower and the dive wheel and stuff. We were both saying how pleased we were we didn't have to get the dummy off the bottom of that bit, because Jelly Park's the deepest at the moment. I guess the new Metro Centre will be deeper.
It'll have a well. Hopefully they do a well like they had at QE2.
Yes.
That was big enough for a water polo game.
Yes.
Because it used to be good.
They probably will. So, but 3.8, Jelly's
and
3 metres.
And game as well. That's what they also used to play in the well. Yeah.
3 metres is what we do to get the dummy off the bottom, and that's enough. 3.8 will really make your ears go.
Even today, when you get down to 2 whatever it is, in Tokoroa, I was doing the odd equalising.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, and then the fact that there was this dive tower and where all the, canoes are stored, and how there's a little control room for when you have a swimming carnival, and all the, timing gear in there, and what I think's great is the way they've got the sauna all painted up like the old Connor Street baths, and the decoration in there is cool. And now they've got 2 big hydro slides, so they don't have the one down the other end. You
see it on the rugby. It's painted in maroon and gold.
Yes, it is too. Yeah, you can see it through.
Yeah.
And then they've got that lovely 15-metre teach pool now. That's not that old. It's old.
Is it warmer? Because the wave pool is cold.
Yes, it is. And the wave pool.
Yeah.
So they were blown away by that. Didn't ever imagine there'd be a 50-metre pool in Invercargill.
So then we were like, well, come see the stadium.
I did. We went to the stadium and walked in, and of course there's climbing walls that clip and climb, and then there's all the
squash courts,
and there was a boat show on.
Oh, yeah.
So we couldn't go into that because we didn't have tickets to go into that. But
did you go to the velodrome?
We went up the lift, and I went around, and there was one area where you could go in to overlook the big stadium bit where they have concerts and the Sharks basketball and the netball finals and all that kind of thing.
Is the main court still where it was originally?
Yeah.
And is it still? Do you know if it's still a roll-away grandstand like it was?
Yes. Yes, because they were back.
So they still did the same layout in the main area.
I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, when they replaced the roof.
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
But I found a way in from upstairs.
Yeah.
So we just went on in through the doors, and the doors are all unlocked.
Oh dear.
And so we actually went in and looked at there were boats, huge boats. The whole area was full of boats and people looking at them all amazing. So then there was the other courts where they have the they could have tennis and netball and stuff. And then we went across to the velodrome, and Marmy and Sophia couldn't get over how steep
It's pretty daunting the first time you see
the
a
bank
velodrome.
is down that.
Even Cubell was like, I remember the first time riding around that gun.
And that was concrete.
Yeah, that was concrete. It's like, you want me to go around there? But then when like I never got to ride on the
velodrome.
I think I've done once, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, was it 25k an hour? You have to.
Yeah, got to get
to
up.
go around without sliding down, and that's what Sophia said. But how did they not fall off? And what if they do fall off? What about the people below? I mean, they crash into each other and
Get splinters.
Yeah. And we're talking about how all, like Stephen Canny had been involved in getting that all organised and going in underneath and seeing where all the nails were going in and to all the pieces of wood and how they replaced them, and then how now there's one at Cambridge. And so they were going, oh, wow, the velodrome, have we even got a velodrome in Christchurch? And this kind of thing. And, and then, of course, there was soccer being played at the in the middle of the athletics track right next door, and then you go, there's the old basketball stadium there, and there's the model trains,
and also there's the softball diamonds,
and they're just going, all these facilities. It's like ILT, Trust Bank, so maybe you pay a little bit more for your booze, but actually it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So we went past we went up to James Hargest and showed them there, and down around past Southern Boys High School, because it's very like Christchurch Boys High School, the building, and then past the museum.
Southern Boys is Brookie. Yeah.
And the pyramid. Yeah. The southernmost pyramid in the world. They're redoing that now. It's
good.
got stuff all around it to redo that. Feldwick Gates and then Marmy said, oh, wow, there's the statue for the Burt Munro car. And, we're talking about her husband really likes motorbikes. I think, oh, come down for the Burt Munro. Yeah. I feel like I'm a bit of a sales pitch for Invercargill here.
Well,
it's a great place for kids to grow up.
I talked to the Between Two Beers guys, and they're trying to be ambassadors, And I said, I do find it funny coming from Southland, coming to Hamilton, and it just gets so much grief. And I guess Hamilton's problem is its proximity to Auckland, where everyone gives Auckland grief, so they divert it to, but what about Hamilton?
Yes.
Yeah, but like
the Tron.
Yeah, I thought Southland it is pretty parochial.
But you kind of got to be.
Yeah, but
it's like Sophia,
Hawke's Bay, they're real parochial.
Yeah, but it's like Sophia going, all her friends going, oh, going to Invercargill. It's like she said more than once, I can't believe I really like Invercargill. Of course, now they've got that complete block that was demolished, just been rebuilt, and they've got a new mall in there.
But there is a TikTok out there that is like interviewing, it's by Vice, and they're interviewing people inside the mall, and they're asking the people, is Invercargill the shittest town in New Zealand? And unfortunately, all those people were saying yes.
Oh, yeah.
Easily said, though, isn't it?
Oh,
and compared to what?
I mean, and we've built a house in Christchurch, and we probably won't go back and live in Invercargill, but that's because it's where we've got grandkids and kids staying there, and it's easier to get to you here and all the rest of it, and circumstances change, and people, you've got to leave town to go to uni, and and then people, because they've gone to uni, get different kinds of jobs and things. But I was on the plane going down, there were two guys behind me, and they were talking about where they were working and that different things, and one of them, it sounded like he had quite a good job, but he was a fireman, but he was aspiring to get a job at TY, because it's such a great organisation to work for, and he had a couple of friends that were working down there, and kids go away to uni and do engineering, or they do sciences and stuff, and they end up going back down to TY and having amazing jobs, and also earning really good money. And this guy was talking about the house scheme and all that,
Then the affordability, once you've got that money,
really nice house.
Yeah, like we say, though, you might have to pay $1 more for booze, but you'll be able to establish yourself a lot faster.
Definitely, and that's the thing, and live a lifestyle for families all the things that you got to do.
I was about to say, I just think about the amount of Southland that goes to Queenstown and Wanaka across the summer and the winter.
Yeah.
But that's partly because their affordability in Invercargill or Southland allows them to then, when it's holiday time, have a really great holiday.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's getting quite hard to do that. If
I'm sure it's harder
staying
now.
in a house.
Yeah.
But I have to say, like, even like us growing up, Mum and Dad didn't have lots and lots of money, but we always had amazing holidays, and they weren't always. We never ever went and stayed in flash hotels. We would. I do remember going to Dunedin, and we stayed in a campground in Kaikoura Valley Road in a tourist flat kind of thing. But, we went to the museum, we went out to the aquarium, and we just saw those sorts of things. And just because you don't sort of have to spend a whole lot of money on stuff, you still get those experiences. And we always went camping because, in some years we couldn't afford to go and stay like that and do things like that, especially if Dad had to work. I remember one holiday, Mum and I and Reese went and stayed in a crib that belonged to somebody that a family friend of Dad's that he grew up with, out at Riverton. And Dad would go in and out to Riverton half an hour. And we had a great holiday out there along the beach and the rocks, and then, going to Glendhu Bay for all those years and having friends.
When did you start going there? 8?
Oh, no, I was a bit younger than that. I was probably 4 probably. No, because Reese went when he was a baby or just toddler. And so, and now, wow, we're still going there. You go there. Your kids have been there. Yeah. And it's another generation, and it's not a flashy kind of holiday. It's just chilling out.
The girls are asking all the time, "Are we going back?"
Yeah.
Like it's like we were growing up. Like, when are we going to Glendhu Bay?
Yeah, and it's not Disney World.
School holidays were the longest freaking things ever because we didn't go to that second week of January. And I was like, when do we go? Yeah,
but they were always modest holidays, but we had some experiences, and they might not have been, although I was pretty lucky, really growing up, we're pretty lucky things, and the fact that I ended up going to Australia when I was 12. I mean, nobody really much did that. It was, unusual. I know, Ryan. I know. You've always been the one that's missed out on things. No. Terrible. That middle child.
12. You were 12.
I do remember those conversations. It's not fair. Yeah. It's like, don't worry, one day you'll get there.
Yeah. They live there,
Yeah. When you can pay for yourself.
I don't know if I could pay for myself. But anyway.
Yeah. But you had a few swimming trips elsewhere, and soccer and all that kind of thing.
No, we were very lucky growing up.
Yeah, and when you see what other kids don't have and don't do and things, it's we've been very lucky. Yeah. And I think you kids have
definitely
had some good experiences too. Like our trips and the 2 big trips when the Toyota Surf.
Well, I know. Like, I now live in the North Island, but I've met plenty of people in the North Island, and it's like I've actually been to, with the exception of the East Cape. Yes. I think I've been to everywhere in the North Island. We went to Gisborne, and I've been to Rhythm and Vines after that.
Yeah, we'd been.
It's basically the East Cape is my last bastion of New Zealand.
Yes, because you went up when you were 9 months old. You went to.
But I've been back up
Russell.
north.
Oh, you've been up there since. Yeah.
And I went back to
I haven't been up 90 Mile Beach. I haven't been past Kerikeri. Need to do that. And East Cape, that'll be pretty much where I haven't been, because I've now been to Stewart Island as well.
Yeah. Oh, the Chathams.
Does that count?
And the Auckland Islands. Jeepers.
I haven't been to Waiheke.
I've been to Waiheke, yeah.
No, haven't. Need to do that too.
Barrier is the barrier.
We need to go and visit Spencer and Helen for a week and go over to Waiheke and have some wine and things. Yeah.
That's good. It's nice over there.
Yeah.
Cool, Mum. So what has kept you in flow this whole lifetime?
Oh, God, that makes me sound so old.
No.
In flow.
Yeah. So what is a way you've lived your life, or a mantra that makes things go well, or does a quote stick with you or anything like that?
No, there's no quotes in this, no. But I feel like there's one little saying that my grandmother's cousin said once. Now, that's way back when I was young. And my mother used to repeat that occasionally. And she used to say, look back, but don't dwell on it.
Mm.
And I think that's wise, because you need to learn from the past, and you can learn from way back in the past, like my great-grandfather coming out from Ireland, and, the bravery and things of those people. And so that your predecessors have done those things, so you can do things that you maybe think you can't. But the not dwelling on it is that don't hold grudges, and if something's not right, then just leave it behind. And so really just, I guess, going with the flow and just enjoying the now and enjoying small things. The joy of, like yesterday, going and picking flowers with two beautiful little girls. and Nana this and Nana that, and look at this, and even like Billy picks up a leaf. No, it was a flower, it was a pansy. Can we have this one, Nana? It's like, oh, it's all been eaten. It's got holes in it. Oh, it's got a slug on it. Can we put this in the bouquet? And I said, oh, I think that maybe this might be the slug's dinner.
Yeah.
And perhaps we just need, and then the slug fell off on the ground, so I couldn't find it. And I said, I think we'll put the pansy back down there so it can carry on eating. But, that little thing, that's just a little thing in time that's just lovely, and you just got to, value all those tiny little things.
Absolutely.
It's not always the big things that, if you can't find joy in the little things, then, the big things, what are they? They're there and they're gone. I mean, John and I have had some incredible experiences travelling overseas as rowing and stuff like that, and they're amazing, but actually you still, it's still those little things, even when you're away, a butterfly landing on a flower or something like that.
Look at that.
Yeah, it is. They're the things, or a light, and the light through some trees, or and I guess that's where, being observant and looking at things like an artist or whatever, they're the things that are like, look at those shadows over there. Yeah. Billy and Annie dancing on the lawn and watching their shadows dancing too,
Absolutely.
I get that. So maybe, they're the things that keep me going and ticking along. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mum. I put you on the spot this time.
Oh yeah. I know you did.
Yeah. My friend Will Fleming, he spoke to his mum before she passed away, and he regretted that he didn't tell her that he loved her. So, Mum, I love you. So,
I love you too, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you very much for partaking in my hobby.
Yeah, it is slightly daunting.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Done.
Well, actually, on that the other week, we went down to Dunedin for John's mum's sister's funeral, and one of you said about doing this, and what made me not hesitate was that Geraldine had written a journal, and she had written some things in the journal about all the houses that she had lived in over her life, which were quite a lot, because her father was in insurance and travelled around, and she'd written it, I don't know how old she was, in her 60s or whatever, and then she'd rediscovered it again when she went into a retirement home and she was on her own, and saying it wasn't really where she wanted to be, but this is where I am now, and
it's another house.
This is where I'm going to be, and it's another house. And then after she passed away, her kids have now got this journal, and it's got stuff in it that she talks about her life and where she lived in the family, and little jokes in the family and stuff. So it was really nice to hear things from her perspective about growing up and catching the tram to school and things and we commented that things might seem normal now, but then when your grandkids grow up and they get asked questions, it's like, what was it like when Grandma was alive? And you think things aren't going to change, but they will, because AI will be doing everything for you, and you have a very lazy time, I'm sure.
Yeah. We'll be from this conversation. We'll be able to just make you now.
Oh yeah. It'll be here forever. Oh, God forbid.
Awesome.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Okay.